When I travel, by far the most valuable thing that I have with me is my laptop. which actually, now that I think about it, doesn't say anything good about my friends. Regardless though, this video is going to be about the step-by-step process I use for securing my Apple laptop. And let me start out by saying that this is not a paid endorsement of any kind. The products that I'm talking about and the service that I'm talking about are not paying me anything to do it. I actually paid my own money to use these products, and I've tested these over time, so I just want to make that clear from the beginning. You know that Apple logo on the back of your computer you paid so much for? The first thing you're going to do is you're going to cover that up. The idea is that you don't want to stand out more than necessary when you're surfing around the internet at cafes. The next precautionary step that I recommend you take is encrypt your hard drive. It's really easy to set up. You just go to Security and Privacy, click on File Vault, and click on the button that says Turn on File Vault. If it's already turned on, it'll say off and you'll have to type in your password to turn off, but you don't want to do that. You want it to be on. The next thing you're going to do is you're going to encrypt a very specific folder on your computer. And having this encryption of your drive in this folder, like double encryption doesn't actually make you safer, but what this does is makes it so you can take this special folder called a Sparse Bundle and put it on something not secure, like a thumb drive or into the cloud, and still have your files be safe. In order to do this, you're going to use a program on your computer called Disk Utility. It's free, it actually is probably already installed. It's in a folder called Applications and Utilities. So open that up. Click on New Image. From there, you're going to have to give it a name, so let's say Travel Documents, and you got to put that in the Save As field and in the name field below. After that, change 100 megabytes to 500 megabytes. So this is doing the maximum size of the Sparse Bundle itself, this type of special folder. Encrypt it, use 256-bit AES encryption, which is what banks use, so you just really don't have to worry about it. And this is the most important part, change this to Sparse Bundle Disk Image. So what this is going to do is allow the folder to resize depending on what you put into it. So it's really cool. And use a strong password, something that you're not going to forget and something that people aren't going to be able to guess. Don't forget this, because if you do, not even Apple can unlock these type of folders. So be careful there. Unclick remember password in my keychain and hit OK. So this is going to take a second, and then it creates it and mounts it on your drive there. Now take some other documentation you have on your computer. So I always have a scanned copy of all my credit cards, front and back, the passport, and my vaccinations. And go to the travel document Sparse Bundle you just created and drag the files in there. So what this does is then encrypts them, so anything in here is now password protected and encrypted. So if you were to put this into the cloud, which I recommend, nobody, even if they get access to your cloud account, can look at this folder without knowing that password. Let's talk about the cloud for a second. So the cloud is just a buzzword that means distributed computing. It's servers that live elsewhere that you don't have to worry about. So there's lots of options for this. The big player in the game is Amazon. So they have a service called Amazon Web Services, specifically S3. They'll take care of this. If you're not a developer, don't worry about this. If you are a developer, you've probably already heard of S3, and this video won't help you. If you're like a normal person, so I recommend a service called Dropbox. Dropbox is a free service that syncs your computers with the cloud. So anything you put into your Dropbox, into this special folder, is then available to you on all of your devices and on all of your computers. So this is what I usually use. If for some reason you didn't want to use this, you could use Google Drive, or you could use Microsoft's version of this, but honestly, probably just go with Dropbox. Okay, so at this point, I'm basically out of buzzwords. So let's stop talking about those things and let's talk about some additional security measures you can take for your laptop. So at this point, let's go back to your computer. Go into Security and Privacy again. This time click on General and make sure that you have it set to ask for a password after falling asleep or doing a screensaver. This way, if you just leave your computer alone for a second, which you probably shouldn't do, but it'll make sure that it asks you for a password. After that, you're going to click on Energy Savings, and you're going to make sure that you set your computer to fall asleep on purpose when you're running on battery. In this case, have it set for about 10 minutes and 2 minutes respectively for display. And you got to do the same thing for the power adapter. The idea is that if you walk away from your computer or someone grabs it, you want it to turn off so that it requires that password we had just made sure was turned on. So this last precautionary step here is actually my favorite because it has some added bonuses. So one of the biggest dangers you run into when you're traveling online is not necessarily someone hacking into your computer, it's surfing on Wi-Fi that's not actually secure. So a nice way of getting around that is to use something called a VPN, a virtual private network. Turns out you can get these for either cheap or for free or for really cheap. I like one called Private Internet Access. I pay something like $10 a year for it. and it allows me to use their VPN, which keeps all of my data secure. So even if I'm not at a website that uses SSL, it makes sure that on the local networks at the cafe I'm in, that no one can eavesdrop on what I'm doing. It also has this super nice benefit that allows you to use boxes from all over the world, use servers from all over the world. So in this case, I can connect to a server in Seattle so that it looks like my computer to the internet at large is based in Seattle. So my IP address is that way and everything else. So if I want to go on to, say, I don't know, the BBC, then I could go to London using this tool. Or if I want to go like something that's proprietary for the United States, I can go back to Seattle or somewhere in California, and no one else will know that my computer is not in those given spots. At the same time, all of the web traffic that I have, if it's something as lame as Facebook or an email, then all that stuff is secure regardless if the service that you're using is using SSL or not. So you have things in the cloud and you have your computer locked down. Now what about physical backups, things that you can bring with you? So for this, I have hard drives that I carry around with me. So as you can tell, I do a lot of video, and it's really, really important to me to make sure I back these up. And actually with the cloud, it's really hard because most of the time I'm in places where internet connection is really shabby, so I can't do like terabytes of data. So what I do is I carry some special hard drives around with me. I've started using a brand that was very new to me. It's called IO Safe. They have a hard drive that looks like this. And this is the reason I picked it is because it was Thunderbolt compatible, which means it's really fast, which is great for video editing. And more importantly, it's travel proof. And so far in my experiences, it really has been. So they promoted this by having a video where like a dump truck or some kind of like fire engine or something drove over the hard drive, and they lit it on fire, and then they had this big explosion, and then like they dropped it from like 200 feet or something like that. These things are really, really safe. And while hopefully none of those explosion kind of things will happen to me, I certainly do run into the rigors of travel where I have this bag that gets thrown around and I drop things all the time because I'm kind of a klutz. But these hard drives look like, and so far have been, been able to live through all of that stuff. So I have two of them. What I do is I carry them in two different places. So one I'll have on me throughout the day, and then the other one, which is a clone of the drive, means it has all the same files. It is with wherever I'm storing my stuff at that given time. So if all my stuff was to get stolen, I'd still have the one that's physically on me. And if I was to get mugged, then I'd still have the one that's with all of my stuff. Okay, we're getting towards the end here, so bear with me. Now, you've done all that stuff, you've secured your computer, you've put it in the cloud, you've encrypted all these things, we used a bunch of buzzwords. So now we're gonna go through a test run. So we're gonna go through a situation where you pretend that all of your stuff has been stolen. So let's say you have your hard drive, and then all of a sudden some really mean guy comes around and he steals all of your stuff. Okay, so what do we do now? Well, go through a situation and pretend that your passport's been stolen and figure out what you do. So you go to the embassy, but then what do? Is there some way you can get internet access, actually log into your accounts, go into Dropbox through their website as opposed to any of your devices, and make sure that you really do have access to your things. Make sure you don't forget your password, make sure you can get into your Gmail to get to your emails, that kind of stuff. Just actually run through the situation that all of your stuff has already been stolen. So here's the big takeaway. Just don't be an idiot. If you have a gut feeling that something seems off, you're in a weird situation, get out of it. Your body and your mind are really smart on these kind of things. Remember, your computer and all of your equipment are really just tools for expressing yourself. The real goal here is self-growth and understanding the world in a new way. So the world doesn't have to be a scary place unless you make it so. Just make sure that your possessions don't hold you back.